Andrew, would you tell us a little about your dad, John Doremus?
My dad, John. Well, John came from the Army, from Lowry Air Force Base up to Aspen in the early 50s for R&R, for fun, and fell in love with it. So when the war was over, he came here full-time. Started as a bellhop at the Hotel Jerome, believe it or not, with a lot of other folks that kind of came here in the 50s. His first real job would be like we would call him a land planner now, or a developer, but back then he just worked with Fritz Benedict, and they did some of the first subdivisions in the 60s.
I'm Frederick Benedict. I was born in Medford, Wisconsin, a little town in northern Wisconsin, in 1914. It took me 3 days to get here. I came on a train, hitchhiked, and got another train, Bridgeway, Grand Junction, slept under the bridge in Glenwood Springs, and then came up on the train the next day in March of 1941. I then discovered this little ranch up in Red Mountain. So I drove up that little narrow winding road and talked to the rancher up there and, about possibility of buying that place, because it was just so unique. You know. And he was interested in selling. He had been trying to make a living with 250 head of sheep, and it was a pretty hard struggle, and he was getting up in years. So we agreed on a price, but then I went off to war to Italy and worried all the time about, while I was gone, that he might sell to somebody else. But when I got back, when I got out of the Army, I went directly up there and made the deal to buy the place for $12,000.
In 1958, I bought a little cabin and 30 acres at Cassidy Creek and Woody Creek, because I had been summer folk for years and years, and it was always realized I should have my own place, and surely there's a mining claim someplace, you know, it'll be cheap, I'll be summer folk. And I fell in love with Woody Creek and the drive and the turn, and everything about it was kind of a love affair, and it became very special to me. And the idea came that as we watched, as the 50s started to turn in the 60s, we began to see snowmass happen. We began to see, you know, development spreading out of town. It was people. It was. If it came to Woody Creek, I wasn't going to like it. So I kind of got a little thing about, okay, I hope it doesn't come to Woody Creek. And then I kind of came around to hope might not be enough to stop it. So how do we plan? And I began thinking about it.
Sure. But the town was such a marvelous, quiet, simple place then. And you'd walk down the street and you would know everybody, except, you know, a few tourists.
We had quite a few friends who
many.
were old-timers, very old, and we'd go and call on them, maybe take some cookies or what have you. So we had, Fritz, I would say, had a great rapport with the old ranchers and miners, which I think a lot of the newcomers did not have.
With Fritz's help, you know, because he had the capabilities, and so did George, and these guys had the land, and he had the ideas, and that's sort of where they realized to keep places as beautiful as they are, you have to have the visual space.
Bob Craig was the executive director of the Aspen Institute, you know, young star, new, powerful guy, and he was now a Woody Creek resident too, and he got on the idea about what we could do. He said, we can do defensive buying in Woody Creek. When something comes up for sale, between us, we have enough money, we'll actually buy the damn things. We'll buy them before the market gets here. So maybe things won't be too expensive. And it was true, it worked. We were buying big hay fields and keeping it as hay fields, so that when you bicycled up the road, and bicycling up was popular, you didn't see monster houses or developments. You saw hay fields. And it was pretty, and there kind of got to be public support for the idea that a valley could remain undeveloped and be pretty, and that's a useful thing.
they were fighting with the same things we are. Because if you don't stop it, you'd have houses all the way up Smuggler Mountain. You'd have houses on every mountainside unless you say we can't do it.
There is a responsibility to say that this is our earth, it's our planet, it's where we live, it's where we bring up our children, and preserving some open space really enters into this is what we ought to do. And then we say, well, since we ought to do this, whose job is it? The rich folks? It's not the rich folks' responsibility to preserve land. It's our responsibility. And so we invent Aspen Valley Land Trust and places like that that take on that responsibility for us.
As you get older, you realize and you see the change. Growing up here in the valley, I've seen so much change, and it doesn't go back. But you see what stays, and you go, gosh, you know, I remember as a kid playing in that field, and I remember hunting over there, and if it's still there, I can see it, my kids can see it, my kids' kids can see it. It's pretty cool. As my dad says in his notes and stuff, he goes, forever is a pretty important statement. It makes it last.
I don't know what to say. But I just feel that we've been very fortunate and we have to give back. That would be basically it, don't you think, Fritz? I also feel, and this may sound silly since we were developers, in a way, people shouldn't really own land. I don't see how any person, just because you have a piece of paper, can say, we own this and you stay out. True? I mean, the land belongs to itself. The land belongs to nature. It doesn't really belong to us. And,
Belongs to future generations.
it belongs to future generations. So one has to give some of it for open space. It's, what's really, it's a matter of duty.
Well, it's true that it's really very enjoyable to give when you have the ability to give.
Yeah, no, there's a spiritual matter is that, and it gets very real. I mean, I can look out over this ranch and see to the edge of the river, and there are no homes, there's no highways, there's no power lines. It's a beautiful sight, and I can feel, yes, it's beautiful, and I feel it's the beauty, and I kind of feel good. I don't honk when the bicycles, they're spread 6 across the road and I'm behind them. I don't honk. I think, you know what? You're from out of town. This is a great experience for you. You're bicycling up Woody Creek because you are enjoying it and you're outside, you're getting exercise, and this is a good thing for the world. And so I don't honk. And it takes me 20 minutes to go 3 miles.